Hey, good day folks. Today we are going to upgrade another one of my projects to Zig 0.16. So I've got a lightweight postgrez wrapper. Now it is possible to call the postgrez client library directly from Zig. But yeah, sometimes it's just convenient to have a more native Zig experience. Now this is going to be very similar to what we've done with my previous video where we upgraded my SQLite wrapper, except that we've got this extra process for the integration testing that we need to manage. Now again, I'm going to start by updating the build zig-zon file. There's a couple of version numbers that I need to change here, and I want to do it before I tag all the changes. It is quite easy to forget to apply these changes and create the tag too early. Next, I'm going to create the header file for the C translation unit. All we need to do in here is just include the header file for the Postgres client library. Next, I'm going to update the build.zig file. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to create our C translation unit. So the root file is that C header file that we just created. Then we need to pass through the target and optimize options. Also, we need to link in the Postgres client library. Righto, then we need to import the C translation unit into our root module. Just call it C. Okay, then what I'll need to remove at the bottom, I've had this function for linking system libraries to the unit test or executables. Let's just remove that. So we can now remove the old c.zig file that I had, and we can give this build a quick test. Now, do you expect this to fail with some compiler errors? Cool. Okay, so as we can see over here, we've got our first compiler error, and that's because we are now importing a file that no longer exists. So let's fix that. Okay, so over here, that's just changing to C, and we don't need the .c anymore. Righto, let's give this another spin. Okay, so we've got another failure, and this is because the way random works is different. Anyway, let's fix that. Okay, so that was on line 699. Okay, there we can see we've got the old way that random used to work. So for the new way, what we need to do is we need to use the IO interfaces. So we start by creating our random number generator. Now this is only used inside a test. The reason we've got this function is so that we can create a new database for each one of our integration tests. I did make a previous video about explaining how to have this isolation between integration tests. So IO equals to testing IO. And then we can ask the random number generator for an interface. not where we've got a rand. Anyway, let's give that a spin. Cool. So all 25 tests pass, but what we can see here, we've got a fail command. And what I think is happening here, we've got these notices coming out of the Postgres client library when I test my schema changes. So what we would need to do is just change the initialization process so that we don't get these error statements from the client library. So the Postgres client library has a notice processor that would print out notices and warning messages that were generated on the database server, and it will print that output to standard error. There's the default implementation of the notice processing, and when output is printed to standard error, the Zig testing framework can interpret that as a failure. So what we would need to do is just apply our own notice processor where we don't print to standard error. So what I want to do is I want to go to the init function of the connection. So we open the connection, we check that we've got a valid connection, and then for this connection I'm going to reset the notice processor. So I'm just going to delete all that, and I'll explain the parameters. So the first parameter is going to be the connection. Then we want to have some function pointer to our internal notice pointer. And the last parameter is where we supply user data to the notice processor. Now this could be a pointer to the connection, or at this point I don't see any need for us to pass any user data through to the processor, so I'm just going to supply a null. Now let's just get the function signature. So there's our function signature. And I guess I'll just put this, yeah, let's just have it directly underneath the init function. So we don't have any user data, we can ignore that. Then we get the message, this function is a callback function, so it needs to use the C call convention, and it doesn't need to return anything. Now I've already got a logger for this module, so I'm just going to use that logger, and it's a notice, so let's just add it as a debug information. So and we go back to where we set this up, and we just apply the function processor. Righto, let's give that a spin. What did I do wrong? Of course, it expects a return value. So let's go back to our init function. We just can ignore it. Let's just double check what's the return value. Okay, so what this function would return is a pointer to the current notice processor, so it is safe for us to ignore. Let's give this another go. All done. So I'm going to stop recording now, and I'm going to push these changes to my Codeberg repository. And then you will join me again when I update the example application. So welcome back. I've already fetched the main version of this project. So it's overridden the existing dependency. And what we'll just need to do is we need to add that new package folder to our gitignore file. Okay, cool. So that's more in line with what I expect. Okay, so let's start by fixing up the build system. So we no longer need to link the system libraries to the executable. That's linked to the C translation unit now. Now the way to run this, we would need to start up a database container first. So zig build db up. Okay, and now when we run the main executable, we would need to pass the connection string for this database. So zig build run dash dash, and then okay, so it's using that special local port that I have, and we need to supply the password. Right, let's give that a go. Okay, so it's unhappy about something. Yeah, of course, the way we get the command line arguments changed. Okay, so now the main function has an init parameter. And we'll ask this init parameter for the command line arguments. Okay, let's just quickly check how this is used. Okay, so we're not passing it anywhere, so there's no function signatures that I need to update. So let's give it a rerun. Okay, now it says that it's connected. Anyway, now that we're done, we can just bring the database down again. Okay, and that's all done. So I'll push these changes to my Codeberg repository and I'll create the new tag. So thanks for watching yet another one of my videos. I've got a few more projects that will need to be upgraded to Zig 0.16. But instead of doing that on camera, I think what I might need to do is just take one of those projects and start from the ground up, and we can work through my thinking and my entire process of getting to the application where it was. Anyway, if you like this video, click on the like button. If you want to see more, subscribe. And I'll see you in one of my next videos. Ciao.